When considering your house for insurance, there are a number of things that an insurance carrier will be on the lookout for. By the end of this video, you will know specifically what those items are and what you can do to prevent them from getting in the way of you getting a homeowner's insurance policy. The number one thing is going to be the roof. Roofs over the age of 20 years are going to be very challenging to find carriers willing to write a policy. It doesn't matter if the roof has a 25, 35, 45, or even a 100-year warranty on it. That part is irrelevant to the insurance carrier. Any roof beyond about 20 years old, and you're going to start to see the number of insurance carriers willing to write a policy for the house start to dwindle. It doesn't matter if the roof has been re-shingled. It doesn't matter if it's been re-roofed over a second time. The roof has to have been replaced within at least the last 20 to 25 years to keep the majority of insurance carriers interested in moving forward. The next one on the list is going to be the furnace. Any furnace over about 25 years will also be of a concern to the insurance carrier. Occasionally you can find a carrier or two, if the furnace is that old, who will be willing to move forward. However, they're going to want to see documentation that the furnace has been taken care of and has been serviced by a licensed HVAC technician. Next up is going to be the electrical system. If you have fuses still in the house or you have old knob and tube wiring, that's going to be very difficult for you to find coverage, and many carriers will not write policies for houses that have that type of electrical wiring within the house. Another type of electrical wiring that is very, very difficult to find coverage for is aluminum wiring. So if your house was built between 1965 and 1972, there's a high likelihood that you have some aluminum wiring going through the house. Since aluminum wiring leads to a higher likelihood for fire, the insurance carriers are most oftentimes not willing to write a policy for any house that has aluminum wiring. So those are some of the major pieces of the house that the insurance carriers will take a look at, but there are some other areas too that they will have some concerns with. One of those would be an in-ground swimming pool. One of the major pieces of concern that an insurance carrier has with a pool is whether or not the pool has a fence. Now you might be thinking, of course I have to have a fence. I wouldn't have been able to have my pool put in without one. And while that might be true for most towns, there are still some rural areas out there that might not have any fence requirements for their swimming pools. In fact, I've seen some. So if you don't have a fence around the pool, then the insurance carrier is very, very unlikely to be willing to offer a policy. But it doesn't just stop at the fence. Many of them will not like if you have a diving board or if you have a slide to go along with the pool. Because if you remember from a previous video we did about what things are covered on my home policy, you'll recall that liability is one of those items that the insurance carrier protects you for. And since slides and diving boards can often lead to some level of serious injury for somebody swimming in the pool, many carriers tend to get turned off by the idea that those exist on the pool and will no longer write the policy for you. So beyond the pool, the next item on the list would be trees. So if you've been on our site for any length of time, you will have seen that you are protected for any falling objects that happen to fall down onto the house. So if you have large trees with very large branches overhanging the roof, the insurance carriers are often going to have a problem with that. See, you're just one big windstorm away from one of those large branches coming detached from the tree and dropping straight down onto the top of the house. And again, you're covered for falling objects, so of course that's going to be a concern for them. So next on the list is trampolines. And for the same reason I mentioned pools, trampolines show up on this list, and that's because of the liability coverage that the insurance carrier has to provide to you. So with a trampoline on site, the likelihood of somebody getting injured goes up significantly, and you'll find many carriers will be unwilling to write a policy for a house that has a trampoline on site at the time that you're applying for the home policy. And to wrap all of this up, the last item or items that insurance carriers will look at are things called attractive nuisances. Basically anything that might be something that kids or people might be looking at from outside of your property and be compelled to want to go explore further. So think like an old rusty car that you might have that's been covered with a tarp that's sitting on some portion of your lot. Maybe there's an old refrigerator that was discarded into the backwoods but yet still on your property. Perhaps an old boat or an unusual hole in the ground that you have on the property itself. Anything like that that could compel someone else to want to go and explore. And remember, with liability, they don't have to have been invited onto the property to get hurt. They can get hurt, you're the property owner, so you're still liable for anybody who gets injured on the property, whether they were invited or not. So the insurance carrier is going to look at things like that, and if they see those things going on, before they accept the application, they may want to ask that you take care of those things before they're willing to move forward. Now, you may be saying to yourself, but Steve, I see many houses like this that you just discussed. Are all of them uninsured? See, the answer to that is no, they're probably all insured, or very many of them at least. The thing with this is, all of these things can't be true at the time that the policy starts. So it could very well be that somebody's on their 15th or 20th renewal. And when the policy started, the roof was maybe only 5 years old, or maybe it was only 19 years old at the time. And it's since gotten older and older. Maybe there was no trampoline at the time. Maybe the pool didn't have a diving board. Maybe that old car that's on the property now wasn't sitting there at the time that the policy was first written. And they haven't changed carriers since. So it's quite possible that you may see houses that are like that. But just know that if you apply for a new policy today, the insurance carrier will be looking at all of these things to determine whether or not they want to move forward. So now you know the selection of things that can impact your ability to purchase homeowners insurance. But what if you've had claims in the past? Be sure to watch our next video called, Will Prior Claims Negatively Affect Me?